morning exercises with letting Krake handle the thing. In fact, that's what I'm going to say. Krake, you handle the thing today. To which you call forth Krake. Krake, yeah. Let me do this. Let's minimize the speaker. Dramaticalizer.
This is Novel AI,
No.
the GPT-powered AI storyteller.
No. What's nasal?
This is Novel AI, the GPT-powered AI storyteller.
Staff, sure. Wait, what if it's staff? PH.
This is Novel AI, the GPT-powered AI storyteller.
Okay, there you go. What difference does staff make? Provider? Provider 3. And as always, I like them long.
I don't know if I can do it anymore. I feel like my hands are going to shake out of control any moment now and send everything flying across the room. It's alright for me to say that, isn't it? We've been doing this since we were little kids, so what is there left for us but a bad joke between friends? This would be much easier for you than for me. Please help me out here. Don't ask me why. Just take over as always. Laugh. The two people in question have become good friends at school by being close with one another. However, their personalities differ from each other considerably. First speaker is a person of constant anxiety and adverse outcomes. He is a sound miner to his knight in shining grandeur without a cause and some fucked up relationships along the way. The second, meanwhile, is calm and collected when dealing with life or anything else he deems worthy. As such, while the first may suffer extreme panic attacks during stressful situations, the latter never experiences fear. To put it simply, they are polar opposites, and yet somehow these two became best friends through mutual interests and daily interactions. In fact, even after becoming adults, the friendship has persisted without change. What kind of relationship exists between them? It's hard to tell just how deep the bond goes for either side. But then again, maybe that's precisely because neither really understands themselves very well. Really. It seems like things are going better for you today. Craig, why do you micromanage life so much? You never give it a chance to give you the shit you want. I know you're trying your hardest, but if you try that much harder every time something bad happens, you'll be a nervous wreck by the end. Really? Yeah, but sometimes for no reason at all, like this morning, I can't help feeling anxious. Craig, do what you have to do, man. There's nothing wrong with being cautious, especially when dealing with life. But remember, sometimes caution gets in the way of living. If you get too caught up in thinking about everything before doing anything, you won't live at all. Really? Well, that's not entirely true. My biggest problem is actually deciding whether or not I am overthinking things or taking them seriously enough. My AppSec class calls this hypervigilance, or catastrophizing, or overthinking, but the brain thinks all the time. No matter what we do, there's all these mechanisms and things the brain starts and stops. And underneath all that the brain is manufacturing our poo, it feels like I've been trapped in my own head forever now. The day I first met him was also one where I found myself constantly stuck on worrying thoughts. That night he made me dinner, a chicken stir-fry with vegetables, and told me his story as a side dish to the main course. He didn't tell it like some kind of sob story. He just calmly explained how life had treated him since birth, or rather from when he got old enough to understand what life was about. I can still hear those words today. For a long time after getting to school age, life simply seemed to happen to me. Like, maybe it's not so bad for us to be born into such an unfair world. Dude, or sure you say that since so many fair and fine as people cross your path out of nowhere. Okay, don't be ridiculous. You think this is easy? Have you forgotten? It's not supposed to be. This is all part of being human. There are no perfect solutions in life. Even if they did exist, who would choose them? The only way we get by is through constant compromise and dealing with all the shit we're given. We don't always have the answers, but we do know we need to work hard to live in this messed up society. At least that's how I see it. After hearing his story, I realized something very important about life as well. I hadn't understood much about my own situation at first. Lily. Hey, what the hell are we doing? What are we? Dawson's Creek. We gonna get to any keg of parties and try out our late stage adolescence yet? I feel like I've been stuck here for a whole month now. I want out. Krake. Listen, man. It's time for you to start working on your anxiety. As a friend, it pains me to see you suffer so much over nothing every day. And you don't seem like you can help it either. Well, let me give you some advice based on experience. To deal with these kinds of situations, you'll have to develop an approach that works for you. Try different ways of thinking about things until you find one that suits you best. It takes time to do this. Don't expect everything to fall into place overnight. But once you're able to handle stress more efficiently, it will become easier to face up to life with less.
Right. Mr. DPT over here.
You'll worry. In other words, just do what you have to do, and that way you won't end up in the same mess again next year. Well, that sounds easy enough. The moment I heard him say that, the answer was clear as day. I needed to stop worrying as much and focus my attention elsewhere, like Harry does. Really. So, what's new? Krake. Nothing really, just working on my manga stuff. Really. Are we ever gonna see the comic book version of your stories? Krake. You never know. If I'm lucky and people like me, maybe I could turn it into a series or something.
Sorry, I'm stirring some hot chocolate right now. As I'm doing that, I'm thinking, hey, I got a great idea for a story. Let's see, I'm going to import something from the Everything's Coming Up from Come Down episode. Importing Everything's Coming Up, Come Down. One of the Pointer Sisters. Manage your tickets. Okay, it goes here. Everything. But. Good cooking. Tamagotchi 2030, that's just right. Yeah. Okay, that you're an experimental dermatologist. There you go. There we go. Back to the story.
Hey, I've got an idea for a manga. FS. You're an experimental dermatologist going to experimental dermatology school. You and a cohort of your fellow students have been chosen on a secret project that supposed lots of funding and government programs and equipment to deal with the most menacing blemishes of old time. Think Neon Genesis Evangelion and your dermatology appointment plus classroom drama, and you have this show called Everything is Coming Up Condones. Krake. Oh, I love that one already. We should start drawing right now if we're going to do that. But you gotta remember not to put in any gratuitous boobies just because you can, or anything else that'll get us in trouble later. Ooh. Well, okay. It wouldn't be fair otherwise. Okay. So anyway, what about those stories? What are you working on these days? Ooh. I'm writing my first novel. Krake. Ew. So how far along did you make it? Have you started reading it out loud? Or does it only exist as a blank document somewhere in my hard drive? Lulu. Oh, but I wish it were on your hard drive. Cackle's a little too lovely, it's almost finished. All 400 pages of it, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I was hoping I could finish it by next week, and then send it off for editing before the end of the month. By the way, it's set in a high school. You know what that means, right? No more waiting until college to experience the best years of your life. This is the time when you have to live up. Cake. Oh yeah, high school is so great. All those sweet memories and new friends you're going to create with this story. So where's the book? Give me all its secrets right now. Okay, we'll think my so-called life meets Philip K. Dick's exegeses. A story about how we are nowhere at any moment, but we should call it something like a bunch of shit. Quick. That sounds like a title from an episode of Family Guy, which I guess would be cool if they actually had any decent plots. But still, I'd love to see some reviews. It doesn't matter whether or not anyone else likes it. I just want to hear how it made you feel while reading it. Last but hey, what kind of author are you anyway? Do you write poetry as well? Because I don't really understand why someone who can write such amazing prose would also suck so badly at writing poems. It must be working on different parts of the brain. I'm just not geared towards much musicality or lines or rhymes or shit like that. But my stories always have lots of metaphors in them that could work for lyrics if I ever put together an album and tried to record the songs myself. Craig. Oh wow. So is the book about a bunch of people struggling with their lives and then learning to live again? Or maybe the main character goes through a midlife crisis and decides he wants to be a teacher because that's what his parents were before him, but ends up discovering a new passion along the way, something completely unexpected, and turns into a hero without even realizing it. Is this book based on a movie plot? Does it involve a guy falling down a hole and coming face to face with some ancient evil being from beyond space and time? Good. All that and more. Think 8 separate universes, 8 separate high schools overlapping each other in universes nested orthogonally on each other. The idea is that one person can only see themselves as the center of their own universe, no matter how many times they look around. And since all these worlds overlap on top of each other, everyone who lives in those different dimensions sees the same world but interprets everything differently. Then there are aliens. I'm not sure what kind of creatures yet. I just know that you need 2 alien species for every single humanoid race, so I don't have to worry about having too many characters. And then I'll have to come up with names for them. It's going to take me a while to think about this. Krake, you've got to write it out now if we're going to get it done by next week. Really, I'm already way ahead of you. I'm digging into my winter stores of Benzedrine for my obesity and narcolepsy, and I'm just writing it at all times, even while talking with you right now. We are good, buddy. Krake. Well, here's an idea. Maybe instead of trying to force yourself through your whole novel before Thanksgiving break, why don't you try writing it as quickly as possible, as fast as you can? If you finish in time, great. But if you can't make it, no worries. We can still submit the book when everyone is home again during Christmas and New Year's after the semester begins back up. Good. Okay, let's do that. That sounds like the best idea yet. So what else has been going on? Did anything cool happen since our last meeting? Krake. Nothing much. Same old, same old. My roommate got a girlfriend, so she moved out so he could have more privacy. And then there was a big
Kerfuffle?
snowstorm that made him want to stay in his new apartment alone for the first time ever, so I had to drive over to get him. And then a couple of days later we got into a huge fight because I'd forgotten my cell phone charger at my place, but that turned into a fun conversation about how sometimes we need to get angry at each other for important reasons. So I think it worked out okay in the end, or something along those lines anyway. Laughs, but yeah, not much exciting stuff really. Really. Well, I'm glad your roomie found someone. Maybe they'll make an honest woman out of her someday. You know, all things considered, we've gotten through some pretty rough times together these past few months. Wait a minute, you didn't sleep with each other during that snowstorm, did you? Craig, what? Why would I do such a thing? You. You did have sex, otherwise you would have just said no. Craig, you're kind of scaring me. You. It's the Benzodrine. I can see the stories people tell to cover up their actual stories. Now give it up, man. You don't want to be doing that anymore if it makes you look like a liar. I mean, they kill my image as well. Laughs never sleep, but hey. So what else is going on with the band and our album progress? Tell me everything. We need to stay focused here. It's gonna take us years to complete this masterpiece. Krake. Nothing much new. We're still practicing for next month's gig at Kappa House and trying to figure out how to get some more money from the label so we won't have to work part-time for another semester. But there has been something kinda cool lately. You blew our bassist, didn't you? Okay. Alright, hi TH and K, we should adjourn for today. If not, we'll probably just end up fighting about nothing in particular until we pass out or something. Hey, maybe we could have an open mic night some week where everyone who wants to come up can play a song of theirs. Maybe even sing one too. It would be nice to hear your songs. By the way, what are they like? Do you like them? You. Well, I don't think I'm ready for any public performance just yet. I don't know if I've ever had anything worth sharing, and that includes my writing. But if it were to be shared, then it might be good, right? But anyway, if you're interested, let me send you my demo when it's done. Okay, following your advice. If you want, we can do each other until it's done. Just saying. You don't have to answer now. I'm off to work on the book. Night, sends kissy face. Krake, ciao.
Because
The
it was the
next
chow.
time I see Drake, he's already changed into his winter jacket. Hey man, says I as he walks towards me from around the corner of the dome building where he'd been standing for a few minutes with two other people, probably friends of his who also live there. They all seem friendly enough at least. He looks tired. His eyes are redder than usual. I guess maybe the cold makes them water more easily. I didn't expect to see you here this early in the morning. He smiles. Yeah, well, it's only 7 o'clock.
Who's closed that door?
It's so dark out though that it must be much later. We're both wearing black hoodies over our pajamas and are carrying heavy books under one arm that make us look like we're holding giant flashlights. Oh yeah? I say, looking up at the clock on the wall behind him. He nods. We're silent again for a while after as we walk down the steps into a parking lot where Drake's car is parked, waiting patiently for its owner. The snow has finally stopped falling, but it still hasn't gotten above freezing overnight, so we have a thin layer of ice covering everything. That makes walking treacherous, even without being fully dressed as we are right now. So many times during my life I've had to struggle through slush and slippery streets while trudging home from school or work. I remember thinking about how great it would be to get a job working in a bar, just so I could spend every day in a place of a constant supply of beer. But of course no one ever did, because they were all too busy doing something else. That's one thing I love to do. And so I'm stuck here in this cold world with this cold man who can barely move his limbs because he doesn't know what the hell to do next. He needs help, but there's nothing anyone can really say. Nothing at all. We want to go grab some breakfast somewhere. Drake shakes his head, staring at the ground instead. No thanks. The words hang awkwardly between us for a few minutes. Finally Drake says, I was wondering if you want me to talk to your roommate for you. I laugh bitterly and shake my head again, still looking at the pavement ahead of us. It must be obvious by now that I don't have any money for food. Even if I had enough for Drake to cover for my share as well as my own, which I doubt, it wouldn't matter much since I haven't eaten anything besides cereal and dried fruit in weeks anyway, not even trying to get creative or find ways to make myself. Look less like a walking skeleton. If I eat anymore, I'll just throw up, and then my body will stop getting nutrition from whatever I put inside it. And soon after that, I won't feel hungry at all, just dead on the inside. So Drake keeps quiet until we get back into our car, which he drives carefully but quickly away from campus toward the nearest strip mall full of fast food restaurants and convenience stores where no one has ever seen me before. He pulls around the corner of the parking lot so he can turn off the engine and lights without having to deal with any curious glances. The rest of the ride is spent staring at the road ahead of us through the windshield, neither of us saying a word, while the radio plays a constant stream of Christmas songs playing over and over again. Deck the halls, jingle bells, Christmas music, a depressing holiday for someone who hates everything about this season, but it's better than listening to some other kind of shitty song that might have come out a few weeks ago, like I Want You Back by Fergie, or that new band, One Direction, they suck. When we pull up outside a McDonald's drive-through window, I I stop to reach for the speaker button on Drake's phone to ask him if we're there yet. Then I realize I don't even know what his number is. We've never been on a first-name basis with each other, which I guess makes sense because we... live in different dorm rooms, but I'm always forgetting things these days, even my own name sometimes. I need to get into the habit of writing down all the important numbers and stuff before they slip away from me forever, like now. And Sir Drake stops the car as soon as it comes to a stop and leans forward so he can see me properly through the front seat glass. He looks worried, so I lean over too and smile at him through the rearview mirror. We both do the thing where you hold your mouth open slightly and look at someone for it to show that you're smiling. It's meant to convey warmth and happiness when talking to people, but it just makes us look like we're suffering from bad dentures or something. Drake nods back at me, then turns around again, grabs his phone, and presses some buttons. After a few seconds, an automated female voice says, "Welcome to McDonald's." That's not very personal, I say sarcastically, which makes Drake laugh nervously under his breath. The drive-through window opens up after another second of waiting while we listen to a man in a suit give us instructions about how to place our order. We decide on 2 large orders of French fries, 1 extra large, drink the largest size they had, 3 Big Macs each with no cheese or sauce, and finally a chocolate shake for myself since I don't really need any of the other stuff they offer. Drake doesn't get anything else besides the drinks. When he hands the cashier the money he'd gotten out earlier in the morning, he realizes he forgot to buy me something as well. So he gives her the last $10 he has left and asks if he can put it toward my bill instead. She looks at him funny for a while before nodding and handing him the change from the previous purchase. He then grabs me by the wrist and pulls me inside as soon as we've got all our food and drinks sitting there between us on the front seat of his car. We're both too cold to feel hungry anymore anyway, and neither of us have been eating enough lately to need that much fuel, so we just take off our winter coats and leave them on top of the bags. Drake passes along some information about the keto diet. It might be appropriate with what your body is telling you, he said, but it's like he was trying to say, you know this stuff, but I don't, and maybe I'm not really interested in knowing either. I think I'd rather just go back into bed and sleep until everything stops feeling so weird around here. Drake must have noticed how tired I look because he suddenly sits down in the passenger seat next to me, which means he needs to let go of my arm in order to do so. And as I sit sideways in my own seat looking up at him through the mirror on the side window, I realize something very important. A fact I should have figured out long ago when we first met, that Drake and I are almost exactly alike. Which begs the question, do we love ourselves or hate ourselves? That's the big thing we're always talking about when we talk about people we care about or don't. Sometimes we'll look at each other and joke about being completely alone in this world, but then we won't mention anyone else again for a while. And sometimes we get angry about someone we see in the distance who has never even tried to come near us, much less make time for us. So does that mean there's only room inside our hearts for one person? Maybe it's true after all. The only real relationship any of us can ever hope to have with another is with ourselves. Because if we don't learn to love ourselves, it will be impossible to share that love with anybody else, and that includes you. No, wait, maybe Lizzo has it right. You don't just up and love yourself out of the blue. Maybe it is the love of other people that give you the template for eventually loving yourself. It's a puzzle, isn't it? Or maybe none of those things matter as long as you love yourself. You know what I'm trying to say here, don't you? And so I tried to think of something nice about myself now because I need some kind of a push forward, and I figured the best way to do that would be by telling Drake how grateful I am for his help today, which is not easy for me, because he didn't hesitate when he came over to my car this morning. He was already standing outside waiting for me before I even knew it, or did I? And then there were all those times since we met at Drake's apartment when we've been talking or eating together in front of the fire. Yeah, dorms have fireplaces. Don't question it. If there were, they probably have them put in anyway. So this means we're actually spending more time with each other than most married couples. But even though I hate all these words we have to use like husband and wife, and even marriage, it still feels good knowing we can sit down across from each other and eat and talk without anyone getting pissed off. Not that you could really get mad with someone who only gets upset if you make too much noise while you're having sex. In fact, you might say that's why we got so close so fast, because we both tend to shut ourselves off completely after a certain point, which is always sooner than later. That is why that was the day I just stopped and kissed him. Even though we had no template for it other than the blowjob of the bassist he never admitted to, he nonetheless leant into it and went there with me, or was he welcoming me into a familiar spot of human engagement? We never talked about it, we just did, and it was refreshing, at least for me. And it lasted for 6 months, and then suddenly stopped, like he did. And then we didn't see each other as much, which made sense in this crossroads of everyone's life. It just happens, no need for anger or complaint. That's what makes people move on. And so here we are again at McDonald's in the middle of winter. But now it seems like maybe Drake knows how I feel. Maybe this time it'll last longer than a few hours. So when I think back over my short lifetime and especially everything that happened during these past 2 weeks, I can't help wondering, what does it all mean? Because nothing's ever meant anything before. You have to put your head down and keep walking forward until you get to the end, which is where you die because you don't know any better than that by that point. Or something else comes along to mess up the picture, making you look somewhere different than where you were supposed to be going anyway.
And that's it. That can be the ending. Because I got a shower. Wow, we did a full-on fiction workshop, college level writing with AI. That was very clean. It's cleanly executed. It's give and take. And, I mean, I guess I make Krake give more, but I corral it pretty okay. So I'm going to turn these off. Because I gotta go get ready for, what do you call it? Work. Good night, or good morning.